Joseph Stalin, A Legacy of Power and Death. Joseph Stalin, born Yosef Vissarionis Dzhukashvili in 1878 in Gori, Georgia, emerged from poverty to become one of history's most feared and authoritarian rulers. His rise from a seminarian to the supreme leader of the Soviet Union is a story of calculated manipulation, paranoia, and an insatiable hunger for control. A control he maintained not merely through policy or ideology, but through terror and the merciless destruction of innocent lives. Stalin's early revolutionary years were marked by criminal activities and ideological fervor. A devoted Marxist, he robbed banks to fund Bolshevik activities and operated in the shadows of more prominent figures like Lenin. Yet, after the Russian Revolution of 1917, Stalin slowly built his power base. Appointed General Secretary of the Communist Party in 1922, a position seen as bureaucratic and dull, Stalin used it masterfully to place loyalists in key positions, setting the stage for absolute control. After Lenin's death in 1924, a power struggle ensued. Stalin emerged victorious, eliminating rivals like Leon Trotsky through exile, propaganda, and assassination. But Stalin's rule was not defined solely by political cunning. It was marked by a chilling indifference to human life, especially that of the peaceful citizens he ruled. In the late 1920s, Stalin launched the first five-year plan, aimed at rapid industrialization, but industrial growth came at a gruesome cost. Stalin forced collectivization of agriculture, seizing land from millions of peasant farmers, whom he branded kulaks, enemies of the people. When these farmers resisted, they were deported, imprisoned, or executed. Their land and grain were taken for the state, and mismanagement, combined with grain exports prioritized over feeding citizens, led to a massive man-made famine. Nowhere was the brutality more evident than in Ukraine, where the Holodomor, a famine some scholars classify as genocide, killed 3 to 5 million people between 1932 and 1933. Stalin knew people were starving. He continued seizing grain, blocked aid, and sealed off villages. Eyewitnesses reported people eating bark, rats, and even the bodies of the dead. Yet Stalin never wavered. To him, these were not citizens in crisis. They were obstacles in the path to a centrally controlled socialist utopia. Having crushed rural resistance, Stalin turned to the Communist Party and the military, launching the Great Purge in the mid-1930s. Obsessed with control and consumed by paranoia, he believed enemies lurked in every shadow, spies, traitors, and wreckers hiding behind ordinary faces. He ordered mass arrests, show trials, forced confessions, and executions. Hundreds of thousands were shot. Millions were sent to the Gulag, a sprawling system of forced labor camps in Siberia and other remote regions. These weren't violent rebels or foreign agents. They were writers, teachers, engineers, factory workers, peaceful Soviet citizens trying to live their lives. One could be arrested for telling a joke, being related to a purged official, or simply existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Families were shattered, children orphaned, entire professions gutted. And Stalin signed the execution lists himself, often approving thousands of death sentences in a single sitting. Meanwhile, the gulags became a symbol of Stalin's indifference to life. Millions labored in freezing temperatures, malnourished and abused, building railways, mining, or logging. Many died from the conditions, others from random executions or beatings. Stalin used the Gulag not just as punishment, but as an engine of economic output powered by human suffering. The camps held not just criminals, but poets, clergy, and countless ordinary citizens caught in the machinery of repression. Stalin's cruelty also extended to entire ethnic groups. During World War II, he accused various nationalities, including Chechens, Crimean Tatars, and Volga Germans, of disloyalty. His solution: mass deportation. Entire populations were loaded onto trains in the dead of winter, and sent to barren, frozen territories. Thousands died en route. Those who survived faced disease, starvation, and forced labor. There was no trial, no appeal, no return. Even after victory in World War II, Stalin's paranoia deepened. He launched anti-Semitic purges under the guise of rooting out Zionist conspiracies. Prominent Jewish doctors were arrested in what became known as the Doctors' Plot. Plans for mass deportation of Soviet Jews were allegedly being drawn up at the time of Stalin's death in 1953, a death that likely spared countless more lives. Throughout his rule, Stalin cultivated a cult of personality that demanded reverence and fear. He was portrayed as the all-knowing father of nations, a godlike figure whose wisdom was absolute. Schoolchildren were taught to worship him. Criticism, even in private, could mean death. The people lived in a state of constant surveillance and dread, never knowing when a knock at the door might take them away forever. Historians estimate that 15 to 20 million people died as a direct result of Stalin's policies, and possibly more. But the numbers alone cannot capture the sheer terror and dehumanization inflicted on a nation. Stalin did not kill indiscriminately in the heat of war. He targeted the peaceful, the poor farmers, the intellectuals, the minorities, the old party comrades, the school teachers, people who posed no real threat but became victims of a system that valued loyalty over truth, obedience over life. Ironically, Stalin died quietly in 1953 after suffering a stroke and laying helpless for hours while his terrified staff hesitated to enter his room without permission. Even in death, the fear he created hung in the air. In the years that followed, his successors denounced his cult of personality and his crimes. Monuments came down, prisoners were released, and history began to reckon with the trauma he left behind. Yet for many, especially in Russia, Stalin's legacy remains complex. Some still praise him for industrializing the country and defeating Hitler. But to those who understand the true cost, Stalin's name is a dark reminder.